Hi, Billy. How are you?
Good evening, everyone. How are we today? Fabulous Thursday.
Well, I'm very excited because we're getting ready for our 2-day workshop, and we've just gone live now into the group. So anyone watching in the group on social media, if you're watching live, type in #live, and the people watching the replay, type in #replay. We're shooting live from our Zoom room with our private clients. And today we're going to be talking about, the topic is, are Australian property prices falling? A lot of people want to know about
We
that.
know the question.
Yep, so I know the question, and we're going to be giving you the answer tonight, which is going to be interesting. So what's been happening? Well, the world economy has been slowing down a little bit because of inflation. And now a lot of the world banks have started to slash interest rates. Unfortunately, the RBA, as always, we're the most conservative RBA. The Reserve Bank of Australia doesn't like slashing interest rates. And what they're trying to do is reduce inflation before they do that, which is the bad news. But the good news is the banks have got a really good way to find out what's happening with rates. And what a lot of banks have been doing over the last few weeks is they've actually been reducing their long-term fixed rates, which means they know something we don't. So I don't always believe what the Reserve Bank says. I believe more in what they do. And maybe the banks know more than what we do. But we're yet to see. We'll see what happens. So I wouldn't hold my breath yet. But I think if we're looking at rate reduction, we may be waiting until 2025.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. And this is what's happening this weekend. This weekend, we've got 100 people from around Australia flying to Adelaide, and we're all getting together for our 2-day workshop. And at this 2-day workshop, what we're doing is we're diving in deep. On the Saturday, we're going to be going through mindset, and then we're going to be I'm going to be revealing our new genius model, the Markoski method. And basically, I'm going to be revealing underneath the hood, if you like. I'm going to be opening up and showing you what happens behind the scenes and exactly how we do what we do. So it's going to be very exciting because not a lot of people have seen what happens behind the scenes. But over the last 15 years, I've been building a machine in the background, and I'm going to be revealing it all on Saturday.
It's a very intricate machine, isn't it, George?
It is, and it's very exciting. And I've cut it down to 9 principles. I'm going to be teaching them on Saturday. Then on the Sunday, I'm going to be doing my yearly State of the Nation, where I'm going to be talking about exactly what's happening in the world economy, what's happening in the future, where we're heading, what's happening with demographics and population, what's going to happen to our GDP. And then we're going to be talking about infrastructure and spending, and then put it all together and show you where property prices are going to go up, where they're going to go down. It's always my favorite day on the Sunday when I go through that, the State of the Nation. And then this is what's happening on Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, evening. In the evening, we're going to be doing our belt ceremony. If you look behind me, I've got a board up here with belts. And you can see on the bottom, there's a white belt. When people join our program, they start on the white belt. Billy, I'll get you to monitor the chat if there's any chats. And
I am.
We'll go through question and answers later on anyway. But if you look at the bottom, there's a white belt. And on the top, there's a black belt. And there's actually 10 belts separating white to black. And there's a reason there, because our headline program is 10 properties in 10 years. And that's what a lot of people want. Not everyone wants that, and that's fine. Because really, at the end of the day, you should be getting the properties you need for yourself, for your income, for your financial future, not for your ego. So if you don't need a black belt, don't get a black belt. If you need a red belt, get a red belt. Get what you need. But every year, our students come back, our members come back, and then they get presented their next belt, which is very exciting. And what I love seeing, I love it when people, join and they start their white belt and they're nervous about getting their first property and they're not sure they can do it. And then before you know it, they come back and they've got their yellow, then they've got their orange and their green, and then they're a purple belt. It's very exciting. And I love seeing that. So I really look forward to celebrating with everyone. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So Cree said, can't wait for this weekend. I can't either. It's going to be great. I'm very excited. Now I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you what's been happening with property prices and give you a few predictions. Now,
they're good predictions. I like writing contracts, George.
Yep, there's going to be some good predictions and some not as good.
Not good. Okay.
Well,
give me the states that we're favouring.
Yep, I'll do that, and I'll show you why. I just need to find where we are. Oh, here we are. I found my notes. Great. Here we go. Safari, and I look very surprised there. Good job, marketing team. I love it. Okay, can you see my screen?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, people can see my screen.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question, are Australian house prices falling? Well, to give it to you in a nutshell, the market, and what I talk about, when I talk about the property market, I like to talk about it as a clock. Imagine a clock. Maybe I should draw one. I'm going to draw one instead. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to draw a clock, and then I'm going to show you what's happening. That's really a good idea. I've got to improve my drawing skills before the weekend anyway, because there'll be a lot of drawing to be done. So share screen, advanced, iPad.
Where's that? Kids can do this so fast. They do it with their eyes closed.
They can.
My son is a little ninja.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the property clock. And as you can see, we've got a blank screen here with an Apple Pencil.
Can everybody see George's screen? No, I can't. No, can't see your screen, George. No.
Okay, let's start again. Okay, let's do this again, and it's going to work this time because
no spinning wheel. No spinning wheels.
No, it's just giving me the Mac. It's not giving me Zoom. It should be giving me Zoom.
All right, we're just going to have to imagine this property clock.
We're going to try it one more time.
Okay.
And here we go. If you don't succeed at first, try again. Okay,
can you see that? We've got that. Yep.
We've got a clock here, and up the top is 12 o'clock. Down the bottom is 6. And then what you've got is you've got 3 and 9. Now, this, I call this the property clock, and this here 12, that is the peak of the market. This is the peak right there. And the bottom of the market is 6. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to buy down here. So that way we can go up, make some equity, reinvest that money. And then we've made enough equity. So when there's a correction, it's not going to be that big. And then we can go in again on another 6 o'clock market. So what happens is we go to a 6 o'clock market. Actually, we go to 7 o'clock market. I'll explain why, because you can't go 6. We go to 7 o'clock market. We buy here. We take that growth. We get this equity, go to the next clock, 7 o'clock, go again, go to the next clock, 7 o'clock, go again. And we keep going at 7 o'clock and reinvesting our equity to another 7 o'clock market. That's the nature of the game. That's what we're trying to do. Now, the reason we don't go at 6 is because it's very hard to predict 6, because 6 o'clock is the bottom, and we don't know if you're ever at the bottom because it may fall even further. But what we do know is once we get to 7 o'clock, where there's an increased demand, and a decrease in supply, that's when we're at 7 o'clock. See, at 6 o'clock, there's a decrease of demand, but the supply equation's not there. And that's why we don't do that, because until there's a lack of supply, it doesn't matter about the decrease in demand because the property prices aren't going to go up. And so what happens is a lot of people get caught up and they try to buy in a 6 o'clock market. They go, okay, it's dropped a lot. Let's buy. Anyone heard buy the drop? So, and I say don't buy the drop, because buying the drop is not good because you might be catching a falling knife. So then what happens is a lot of people in the stock market and Bitcoin call buy the drops. They wait for everything to drop and then they buy because they're buying cheap. But when you buy the drop, you run the issue of catching a falling knife. We don't want to do that. So what do we do instead? The demand falling in an area that is just a drop. But what we want is an increased demand, decreased supply. And once you've got those two things, you're at 7 o'clock. Hope everyone understands that. Just a little bit of a lesson about the clock. So there's not just one clock in Australia. This is what we have to realize. There's 15,000 clocks. And I've got mine all 15,000 of them. There's literally 15,000 clocks, and I've got a spreadsheet that I'll look at that gets updated live. And what happens with all these clocks is different factors are moving the clock up and down, all these suburbs. And then what we do is we look at the top 100 clocks and go in there, because those 7 o'clock markets in the top 100 are going to outperform any other market in Australia. So when I talk about our property prices dropping in Australia, yes, they are, but only some of these clocks. Some of these clocks are going up, some are going down, and it's just a matter of getting the right clock. So let me show you some of the macro factors when it comes to property prices and what's happening at the moment. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay.
While you're sharing, George, just a quick question. With the white belt, when does the member receive that? Is that on their first property or when they join the program?
When they join the program. So you get a white belt when you join. When you get your first property, you get yellow belt.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yep. And I've bought a lot of belts. I've got a big pile of them at home that I've just imported. I've even bought, I've got a sword that I brought back from Japan, which I'm going to be presenting on Sunday as well, which is very exciting. So, total listings. Let's have a look at this. So total listings, that means how many properties are actually up for sale. And what this is we're looking at the last 10 years. So we can get some statistics. And what we're trying to compare is what does it compare to the last 10 years? Because if you got more listings, that equals more supply. Less listings equals less supply. Does everyone follow that? Can I have a thumbs up or rockers if you follow that? Yep, great. So let's look at Sydney. Sydney is about where it normally is. So the supply has stayed still in Sydney. Melbourne has got more listings. So if a market's got more listings, more supply, what does that mean? Probably not that good. But look at Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, where they are. They're a lot lower than they normally are. And the reason they're a lot lower is because no one's selling. There's nothing available. And that's the three markets we've been hitting because they're 7 o'clock at the moment. But not all of them are 7 o'clock, because when you look at Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, some property suburbs there have already hit 11, 12 o'clock, and others are going down, and others are still going up, and others are 7 o'clock. So it's a matter of really going into the fine tuning, because what this does, it gives us an idea of where we're going to hunt, but then we've got to really drill down and really hunt down the right property from there. So the Melbourne dwelling values have dropped slightly, but it's no big deal, because funny enough, Melbourne's a big place. And even though there's a lot more listings in Melbourne, and some suburbs in Melbourne are terrible, there's actually some very good suburbs still in Melbourne, because you can't let the macro factor affect you. Now, is there a lot of suburbs that are good? No, but there are a handful of suburbs that are going to do very, very well. And there always is. Even when the whole country's going down, there's always suburbs that are going up. We just got to pick them. Housing affordability. Now, this is the interesting thing. You look at Sydney. At Sydney, so this is percent of pre-tax income directed to mortgage. And you look at Sydney, housing affordability in Sydney has gone very low. It's very low affordability. The higher the graph, the lower the affordability. Now, however, the price is still going up because even though the affordability is very poor, there's not much available to buy, and therefore there's still demand. And as you can see, Adelaide, Hobart, Brisbane, Perth, the affordability is easier to afford, a lot more easier to afford than it is in Sydney. And now, how many years it would take a school leaver today to save a deposit? So if someone left school today and they got themselves, a decent degree, an average person left school, they would take, if you're saving 10% of income per year, it would take 46 years after you left school in Sydney to afford a deposit to buy a house.
Did you say 46?
Yeah, 46 years.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a while. In Melbourne, it'll take 21. In Brisbane, 21. Canberra, 25. Adelaide, 17. Perth, 12. Hobart, 17. Darwin, 11. Australia, average 26 years. That's for houses. Units, I'm not going to talk about units, but with units, it's always a lot cheaper because there's no land component. And you look at house mortgage repayments on average as part of a single income. In Sydney, 127% of your wage, on the average wage, would go to the average property in Sydney. So you can see why, actually, when people say the kids in the future aren't going to be able to afford a house, and I always disagree with this, but I'm saying maybe this could be true. So that's what's happening at the moment. Now, we can look at the sad part about people not being able to afford to buy a house and everything else like that. And the reason it's hard is because when you buy an owner-occupier, you have to do everything yourself. You don't get any tax deductions. You don't get a tenant helping you. You can't leverage anything. You've got to do it all yourself on post-tax dollars. So what happens is you get paid. Before you get paid, they take out super. They take out your tax. Then you got to pay your bills, and you got to pay your electricity, and you got to pay your food and everything else. Your Netflix, your cafe lattes, your avocados on toast. And then whatever's left over, you've got to pay towards your mortgage. It's very difficult. So the Australian dream of owning a home is disappearing. Now, is that sad? Maybe. But the thing is, when it comes to investing in property, it's actually never been cheaper to invest, except for a couple of years ago. So I need to change that statement. So when the interest rate's really low, it was a lot cheaper. But if you look at how much it costs to buy an investment property today, we were paying the same amount of money in the 90s for an investment property because of the interest rate and because of the rent. Because rents have gone up, the difference, because when I was buying property in the 90s, it was costing me around $300 a week to buy property. That's because I had the wrong structure too. Our clients are buying property for about $100. Billy, is that right?
Yep. Correct.
Yep. Okay.
About 100, 120.
Yep. $100. And that's pretty amazing. That's because we've got the right structure. So when you think about it, if you're buying a house now for 100, but it's going to cost 300 back in the 90s, what's cheaper? Because it's not the price of the property, it's what comes out of your pocket that matters. The price of the property is just one part. What we're going to look at is cash flow, because the cash is not king, cash flow is king. It depends on your cash flow. And funny enough, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, sometimes people look at a property, because a lot of people are stuck in their head about how much they want to spend on a property. And they'll get a property, and let's say this one's negative $150, $200, let's say $200. and they're looking at it going $200 a week. I don't want to buy this property $200 a week. I want a property $50 a week. The thing is, if you can't get one $50 a week, that's good, and you say no to the $200 a week, and then you wait a year, then that property is going to be $300 a week. You're not actually doing yourself a favor. Then you wait another year, and then it's going to be $350 a week. It actually gets harder the more you wait. That's the thing with property. It doesn't get easier, it's harder. And the opportunity cost, once you wait long enough, you actually might miss out on the market entirely. I've seen people do that quite often. Before COVID, I know a few people that were able to get 2 properties. Now after COVID, they can get 0. And they were umming and ahhing then. But that's the nature of the market. And
hindsight.
Yeah, and because inflation keeps marching on, no matter what happens, it's marching on over and over and over. You can't stop it. You got to just jump in there and jump with the elevator. If you think about inflation as an elevator moving up, the property clock, and property is moving up, and you're sitting on the side of the elevator, you're going, oh, I'm not going to jump yet. And what you're doing is following the elevator and climbing up these stairs, trying to follow it. But the elevator's getting faster, it's going faster. Then you're running up the stairs trying to keep up, and then you keep going. But all you've got to do is buy an investment property. Then suddenly you've got to hedge against inflation, and you've jumped on the elevator. And then the elevator's pushing you up at the same time. So if you're walking forward, you're making so much more progress. And then the people on the side that are climbing up the stairs trying to get the perfect deal, they keep climbing up the stairs. You bought another property, you got 2 elevators moving up. Does everyone follow that analogy?
We have a question from Chris George. How do you go from
Okay, so yes, we got from, okay, I'll answer Chris' question, and then I'm going to switch off the live, and we're going to go deep in our private group and ask personal questions and really get into it. How do you go from minus $200 a week to making decent passive income from a property in 5 to 7 years? Good question, Chris. That's a great question. What happens is, you know, people always talk about, what do you want, growth or cash flow? Who knows what to get? What do you want, growth or cash flow, and why? Type in the chat if you want to. Both. Yes, I love it. Yes, so look, we want both because the growth is going to give you wealth. That's where you make your money, in the capital growth. But the cash flow is going to give you cash flow, and that's why it's great. So how do we get both? Well, we got to get the ideal property. And what happens is properties that have got a high cash flow have got a piss poor growth. That's the problem. And that's why they've got a high cash flow. So what happens is if you go out in the middle of nowhere, you can get 7, 8, 9, 10% cash return on your property. And it's going to be great. You're going to be making cash flow. But that property is going to sit there and do nothing. Now, where the money is made is in the growth, because growth and cash flow are actually the same thing, if you think about it. So if I've got a $500,000 property and it grows by 7%, I've made $35,000. Now I haven't got that in my pocket, but I can refinance and take that money out. But it's real 35 grand. So it is cash flow. But this is the other part. What happens is, as your property grows, then the equity, you're going to get 5% of the equity back as rent. So I'll give you an example. I'll get my calculator out. This is the way it actually works. And it's a beautiful thing. 35,000 times 5% equals 1,750 divided by 52. So if your property goes up 35 grand, your rent's going to go up $33 per week. Soon after. Not straight away. Bit of a lag, but it'll go up. That's basically the way it works. So the thing is, if you're chasing rent, then what happens? You're going to get that rent, but your rent's never going to go up because the value of the property is not going up and your equity is not going up. But I buy property that's equity going up, but it might have slightly less rent. But then what happens is each year I make money on my equity, 35 grand, which is 35,000 divided by 52. That's $673 a week that I've made out of that. And now it's going to be another $33. So that's $700 a week. I'm kicking ass from that other property, really doing well. So the growth gives you cash flow. That's the way you've got to think about it. And growth is cash flow, but just not realized yet. Anyway, that's all for the live things. We're going to switch off and we're going to go deep down in our private group and get into the nitty gritty. Thank you everyone for watching. Same bat time, same bat channel next Thursday. We're going to see you then. And our private group, let's say hello and let's get into this.